If you pull up the counter as well, we just saw gains of 2% and almost at a 52-week high as we speak. But moving from there on, real estate is the pact that we need to focus on in today's trading session as well, on the back of RERA that is expected to be implemented in Maharashtra from the 1st of May. How is this exactly expected to pan out? Because 1st of May is the deadline, and the release is pretty much pro-consumer in terms of where RERA rules go. Now, to discuss this in detail, we have been joined by Rajeev Talwar, the chairman at NAREDCO. Good morning, Mr. Talwar. To start off with, firstly, in terms of RERA being implemented from the 1st of May, and we're starting off with Maharashtra, yet not reached the majority of the places where you would be working with. But overall, if you could just tell us in terms of where RERA is concerned, it is pretty much pro-consumer, and overall, if you talk about from the developer's perspective, the regulations also have been tightened. What is your first stance to this?
I think RERA is a very good piece of legislation, and let us hope that any of the problems which the buyers were facing will now become a story of the past. To begin with, it's not only in Maharashtra. I think in the entire country, RERA is coming into force from the 1st of May, as our Minister for Urban Development, Mr. Venkaiah Naidu, has announced. So let us welcome this process, because buyers have been facing, for various reasons, problems over the last almost a decade, since 2008-2009. So first things first, that the interest of the buyer must be protected. They must get a home at the price at which they were sold and of the same specifications which they were sold. Now, to come to RERA and its implementation, this will certainly take some time, because the new regulations say that you can register only after all approvals have been taken. Now, in a place like Maharashtra, that can be a cycle which can take up to 2 years, because very often various authorities are not in place, they are not in office, and also that they take plenty of time for processing the same approvals, which should be really not so time consuming, because it's well known what is required to be seen, and there are very well qualified professionals who prepare all the plans. So why the process should take time is best left to second guesses. Now, that being a part of the process, I think you will be really concentrating, and all of us will be concentrating, that what happens to buyers who have already booked flats and apartments in a place like Mumbai or any other town and city anywhere in the country. I think the real problem to solve is of those buyers, due to which and due to the problems of whom such a legislation had to be brought about. That, I'm sure, the solution does not lie in only bringing those to book and to send them even behind bars, as is being tried at some places. I think the real solution lies in assuring all the buyers all over the country that the apartments which they had booked will be delivered to them, albeit perhaps very much delayed, but they will be delivered to them without any additional charge and without any change of specifications. To that extent, I think all the state governments, including those of Maharashtra, as you have been talking about, need to get some things into action. One, an inventory of projects which have been undertaken for construction and which are nearing completion. I think to those projects we need to pay special attention, so that some kind of kickstart funding, if required, may be done through an escrow account, so that projects start rolling again. Buyers have faith that sooner than later they will be given possession of their apartments. And number 3, that yes, this cycle becomes the first priority to give all the buyers the apartments which they had booked perhaps many years back. And I think that credibility or trust deficit should be restored and should be negated as far as any deficit goes. Now, if that takes place, I think the first reason for the establishment of RERA and RERA authorities would be justified. And how much time they would take, I think the next point would be for state governments to ensure through the authorities which are set up under RERA that how much time can they give to each one of the developers to complete their projects.
Right. So, Mr. Talwar,
because that is something which is essential.
Yeah. Mr. Talwar, quickly if you could just tell us over here, so it is clear that yes, you know, in terms of RERA coming into practice, it will bring transparency to the sector. But one thing what I would want to ask you is in terms of where penalties are concerned. They have a penalty of almost 10% going ahead if, you know, if they fail to recognize this. But in terms of a 10% penalty, if you talk about where players are into affordable housing, their margins are only in the range of 10 to 15%, and if a penalty is given on that, at some point in time if they default, do you think all the players that who are into affordable housing somewhere will be washed away?
First of all, you're very correct that there are wafer thin margins as far as affordable housing is concerned. I think I was coming to the third point where state governments can intervene or the union government can intervene, that if prices of commodities go up, for instance, we've seen cement go from 220 rupees a bag to more than 300 rupees a bag in the last 6 months. We've also seen the price of steel, which has gone up from something like 33,000 rupees a ton to 47,000 rupees a ton in the same time period. I think to that extent, the experiment which was done by the Ministry of Surface Transport under Mr. Gadkari recently, or what used to be called the DGSND earlier, we need to have each one of these producers commit to a price of over a year and the quantity which they will make available, so that all builders of either affordable housing or other housing can actually plan their outlay and capex over a year's time. I think to that extent there will be some responsibility on the state governments and the union government and also the producers of these basic raw materials. But more than these wafer thin margins which we should be worried about and the penalties, yes, there have been delays. There are self-imposed penalties which are in place with the builders, and also the interest should be for all the people, all the buyers and all the governments to ensure that all buyers actually get their apartments at the contracted price and as early as possible. Let each one of the RERA authorities take up each project and transparently bring out how much time is required. Is it a year-long period? Is it 2 years? Or is it maximum of 3 years? Because before all the approvals are taken for new projects and new projects come into line, I think we should endeavor to complete the existing projects and hand them over to the buyers as early as possible.
Right. So, Mr. Talwar, if you could quickly tell us that over the next 8 to 12 months, do we see some bit of a negative impact that might come in, because we will see some bit of consolidation that will come into the sector. Will it be difficult for real estate players to survive for the initial 8-10 months on the back of RERA? A very quick one on this.
I think RERA is a new paradigm which has come in. People will have to find ways and methods, not only by the builders, but also along with enlightened buyers, with RERA authorities coming into force, as well as most critical, the state governments and the union government, to see how deliveries can be made in as short a time period as possible, which may extend over a year to 2 years or even 3 years. And I think before new projects are allowed by the same people, I think we should see to it that all the existing projects are completed and are delivered, so that while you take approvals for new projects, you also continue the process of cash flow and also delivery to the buyers. I think that's what will be critical over the period of next not only 8 to 12 months, but perhaps from 12 to 36 months.
Right. That's a very important point that Mr. Talwar has made currently, that in terms of the approval process is concerned, in terms of ongoing projects which are stuck, those need to be cleared by the builders and in the realty space before getting approvals in terms of any new projects are concerned. So it is beneficial for the consumer as well as the developer as well. So that's a very important point that we have been picking up so far. In fact, thank you, Mr. Talwar, for joining BTVi right now and giving us those entire clarifications and details as well in terms of where the RERA Act is concerned, and the prices, if you see the stocks as well, seeing major amount of gains, and the rally has been continuing over the last couple of sessions today as well. If you see Indiabulls Real Estate, which is up almost 10%, Oberoi Realty up 2%, you have Godrej Properties, Mahindra Lifespace, major of the counters which are trading pretty much in the green as we speak. In fact, we will slip into a short break and then connect with Krishna Budanapu, the MD and CEO at SAR, to decode the earnings fight print. Please stay tuned.